Well, I can tell you that I'm thrilled to be here. While I haven't started, and I won't start until officially the 23rd, I have been here last week as well as this week having some very strategic conversations, learning an incredible amount, and I have so much more to learn. But I'm thrilled and I'm excited, and I will start very shortly once my move occurs. I have to get back down to Atlanta here in the next few days, gather our things, and move it up here to Norfolk. So, as you know, that will be chaotic and probably a bit of a nightmare, but we're going to make it happen. I've really tried to focus the first meetings with, number one, our senior leadership, meeting with board members. I'm going to meet with some people in the city tomorrow morning before I leave. And so that has been the focus, knowing that I'm just dipping my toe in before I start. But my entry plan, which will be approximately 90 to 100 days, will have a long list of really important connections and relationships that I'll be establishing. I will tell you this, no offense to any of the adults I've met with so far, but this morning I was able to meet with a group of leadership students at Ruffner. I forget the name of this leadership group. And they were the ones, they attended a board meeting. I was watching the board meeting live, and these students stepped up to the microphone with what they described as advice for the incoming superintendent, unaware of who that was going to be, but they had advice. I was watching this at home, and I mentioned to my wife, now that's a group I got to talk to ASAP. And so we had a lovely discussion this morning, and that was the content of the discussion, was me asking, what do you think I need to know in order to lead successfully in this place? And hearing from students will always be something I will just treasure because you learn a lot.
Dr. Rose, I understand that you have some meetings that you're going to have with folks in the administration building today after talking with us. You know, what are your goals for today in talking with folks in this building? You know, how do you want them to feel having met you today?
You know, I think my goal today in the upcoming meetings will be to do a brief intro of kind of who I am, some of my values, some of my how I attempt to lead. I think they need to be aware of what I come with as it relates to some of my style and strategy. But in the meantime, to be quite honest, I want to sit with them and allow opportunity for discourse. So I think we're meeting with these 3 45-minute presentations. I think my stand and deliver will be about 10 minutes. And the rest of the time, we will be circling up like this. And I will be saying, what do you want to talk about? What's important? And that is what I find to be sometimes the best way when it's a reasonable size group like these will be, to be able to truly understand one another. Is not for me to talk at them, but for us to talk with each other. That's always this question of leadership style, right? I will tell you this, that there are several things you'll probably learn to, people can learn to expect from me, is every leader will say that they're collaborative. I'm going to say it too. I truly have learned over the years that really good leaders, especially in school systems, don't lead alone. Number one, I have a variety of teams. My first team, our school board, it's critical that we constantly communicate and understand one another. We need to have clarity relative to what our goals and our passions are for this community. And I will sit and serve with a variety of teams, but the way in which I do that is I like to circle up. I like to hear people's perspective. And it's really important to me, even if I am the one that needs to make the decision, I'm not making it blindly. I need to understand the perspective and the nuance and the rhythm of this place before I can make wise decisions or even wise recommendations. Well, I don't know, but I do know this, that as it relates to student achievement, and one thing that I am drawn to is the opportunity for improvement in our schools. I think that there is a fit. I think that there is a match. It is something that I'm passionate about. I think with the right systems and structures and support, students can do incredible things. I think it's our job to be their visionaries, and I believe students can sometimes learn much more than we sometimes assume, and if we use past achievement as a determination for what students can accomplish in the future, I think that we're missing the mark. Sure.
And the
Sure.
and he was
So, I've been an educator for a long time, and so therefore I will say that I have extensive experience as it relates to trying to meet the individual needs of students. It is very complicated. I'll start here. It's really important that we as adults think about the why behind certain behaviors or challenges students are experiencing. It's very easy for us, and we need to, create rules and regulations and so forth. And when there are challenging circumstances, rather than quickly passing judgment on student behaviors or their reactions to things, if we're wise educators, just like we would be as wise parents, we ask the question of why. So I will tell you this, I have 2 children. I love them the same. I treat them differently because they are different. And so our ability as educators, and I heard that this morning in the message that students gave me, one of the most important things we can do is understand our kids and have relationships with them. That no matter what, we can talk about instructional strategies, and we should, about what is scientifically based, what we know is best as it relates to delivering instruction, pedagogy, etc. But I will tell you this, the number one strategy, the cornerstone of this work is relationships with our students and vice versa. All of our students need to feel safe, and they need to feel as though they have an adult or multiple that they can turn to when they don't feel safe or they have needs that they need to have met.
Dr. Rose, and maybe this your answer you just gave kind of answers this too, but Norfolk is such a diverse city, both racially, but also in income. Every different neighborhood has something different going on, and each high school and each community is so different. What, in your experience, do you think will help you guide a district that is so different from one edge of the city to another?
Well, probably number one, I will always say this, I have a lot to learn about the nuance of this tapestry you described. But I will tell you that that is a draw for me. My past experiences in districts that I've worked in systems and schools, they've been diverse ones. And I see that as a tremendous strength. Some describe sometimes diversity, and I think that this is a shame as a challenge. So up there on that slide, right, it's at Norfolk Public Schools, and then underneath it, right, it talks about pride in diversity. And I think that is a gift. I don't think we learn at our utmost when we are sitting next to people that we're very similar from. We learn when we are with people that are different from us. And that level of discomfort, as long as we feel safe, is where we learn at our optimum level. So I have a lot to learn as it relates to the different areas of Norfolk and those specific needs. I do believe in systems that support our schools. And I also believe part of that system is to understand that it's our job as a school division to understand the needs school by school so that we can meet them accordingly, just as though we would expect teachers to do the same for their students in their classroom. Yeah. Well, we've actually been dancing around that question. So, number one, about 2 years ago, a little less than 2 years ago, after stepping out of the superintendency in Fulton County, started leading Ed, and then when that was acquired to Cognia, I found myself and our division supporting superintendents all around the country. And I thought, as soon as that contract ends, I need to go do this work again. If I think back to my past experiences where I feel I can bring a value, but most importantly, when I feel needed, is when I'm leading in that particular way. And so when I finished at Cognia, I've been scanning for some time to find places that I think aligned to things I'm passionate about. We've mentioned one, diversity. It's really, really important to me. The place that I want to lead and serve is a place that is diverse, and by the way, is proud of it. I also don't necessarily, when I scan for districts, and right, as you said, there are 15,000+ of them across the country, I also don't look for something that I think is going to be comfortable. That's not my intent. I look for a place where I feel leadership is needed and there is potential. I think there is extreme potential in this place, and I want to do my best with others to tap into what that can look like in the future.
That being the case, what do you see as being the
Well, and by the way, this is not just a Norfolk issue. School districts are very complicated places. I actually think it's probably one of the most complicated, if we consider this as we align it to, say, a business infrastructure, we may be one of the most complex. If you think about it, number one, we have the complexity of adults trying to raise other people. That's messy in itself, right? Two, we run transportation and food service, real estate. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and our expectations as it relates to what we're accountable for, it's not just one thing, but it's many things. I don't know a business that has as many financial, as many structural audits as school districts do. I mean, we are constantly being evaluated. Now, that complexity, I think, calls for really, really strong leadership, but what that means is you can pretty much throw a dart, and you're going to hit a target as it relates to things that can improve. And so when I look at the system here, there's more that I don't know compared to what I do. But what I do know is there's incredible opportunity for improvement here that will trickle down and make an impact on the lives of students. And it's that potential and those opportunities that are abound that draw me to a place like this. And by the way, the fact that we are this city district, I see a lot of beauty in that. I have worked in systems that have served beyond, say, the city, counties, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's something very intriguing to me when you can say, this is us. This is our city. And every student that is within our city, they are our responsibility. And I find that to be extremely empowering and something I just want to be part of. I am, yes. I have 2 children, and I'm a fairly recent empty nester. And that's not going well. That's really, really hard for us. I have a daughter who just graduated college, and she now has her first professional position. She is down in Florida. She graduated from University of Georgia, and my son is a sophomore in college, and he's up in Connecticut. He attends school and plays lacrosse for his college. And I'm speaking directly to parents. Okay, I would say this to parents. I was a teacher, I was a principal, and I was married for 9 years before I had my first child. I thought I was prepared. I was not. Being a parent is complicated. It's extremely difficult. And what I would want parents to know as an educator is I'm sensitive to that fact. I don't think a parent should see the job of raising their child as their own. I also want parents to understand that I think they're the experts on their children. We can do everything we can in our power, but we are partners in this work when it comes to raising and supporting our students so they can be successful when they leave us. That is something we need to come together and do together, as opposed to rely on just one another and point fingers when we're frustrated. We are on the same team, despite how sometimes messy that can be.
One of the big challenges that the public school system is facing here is declining enrollment, and as a result, they're consolidating and closing some schools. You probably heard about
Sure.
that. What's that like for you to kind of jump into such a huge thing happening in the district and it's kind of this restructuring? I mean, that's got to be pretty complicated for you, but also it's a pivotal moment, like you said, being sensitive to children and parents. It's a hard time because they have to, a lot of them have to move schools
Sure.
and kind of change what the plan was.
Yeah. So first off, I want Norfolk to understand we're not alone in this challenge, right? It is actually our job to pay attention to our city and our community and our schools. But this phenomenon is happening across the country, regardless of demographic, regardless of wealth or poverty in a community, right? Declining enrollment is an element of schools that we didn't face 20 years ago. When you close a school, you impact lives. So number one, we need to be sensitive to that. Number two, we are also stewards of our facilities and our resources, and sometimes there are pragmatic challenges that really push for sometimes very clear answers, as complicated and as painful as they may be. I will say this to a parent or a family, or most importantly, students being affected by redistricting, restructuring of schools. I am aware that's hard. Will not be the first time I've ever gone through this challenge. From a superintendent perspective, I have been in the middle of making changes with boundaries on where students attend schools, closing schools. I do, like all of us, have some battle scars to prove that. It is hard, difficult work, and yet it is something that we have to do. Our job is to be as wise and as sensitive as we can moving forward. That doesn't fear me. Doesn't make me nervous jumping into that. That's what leaders do. We need leaders who are willing to kind of boldly answer some complicated and challenging problems, and I'm willing to do that, and I don't do that alone. The school board has navigated that for the past year. It is a very difficult thing to do. They have been successful, and we have much more success ahead of us. Sure. I would tell teachers this, that we know for a fact, this is not an opinion, that when it comes to the impact on what makes the biggest impact as it relates to a student's success while they're in school, is the teacher. The teacher is the number one determiner as it relates to the experience students have. I also know that teachers can't do their work well unless they feel supported, they feel needed, and most importantly, they feel valued. And so it will be my job to do everything I can over time to demonstrate to teachers, as a leader, as a future teacher, a past teacher myself, that their work is important, and our job is to create a structure and a system, and more importantly, a culture they feel part of. Of course, they have an amazing need to serve the students in their classroom, but they also need to feel as though they are part of their school, of this division, of this community and the movement and improvement moving forward. We don't do this without them. And they don't do that without leaders shoulder to shoulder doing this work. Mm-hmm.
It is something that is on.
Well, I'm not going to give you the specifics and answer that myself. I will tell you this, because I have a lot more to learn as it relates to the safety and security infrastructure of our schools. So I don't want to pretend as though I know those details. I soon will. What we do know is that for our teachers and our students, most importantly, to feel safe in schools is critical. And sadly, I will say that that is different now than it was 10 years ago, than it was 20 years ago. And so the kind of precautions and safety infrastructure that schools need to have, in fact, I would say this, that when a school district can say and can very clearly prove the expectations that they have, not just for student behavior, but also for adult behavior when there is such a tragedy, that is really, really important. And that doesn't come without training. It does not come with infrastructure. And it does not come without specific ways to respond when there is an emergency. And you're right, what occurred a few years ago, very close to us, not just was tragic, but it was a new kind of tragedy, right? We hadn't experienced something like that. And I do know that Norfolk and other districts have been learning since then, and likely will continue have an unfolding learning opportunity ahead as it relates to what we're going to do to create safety in our schools. And I will be able to answer that more specifically as it relates to what we are currently doing, but most importantly, what we need to do in the future to ensure, as best we can, incidents like that don't happen in our schools. I don't really see that as, I don't think you see my goals, like how do I set myself apart? Number one, I don't know the past leaders. I don't have a relationship with, the past board members, with the past, so I don't know. I can tell you this, that my intent here, whether this sets me apart or not, is to become part of this community, is to learn to understand this community, and is to think and act boldly with other leaders, shoulder to shoulder on behalf of students. I said before, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and there is. And so what I want to do as a leader is I want to be part of that trajectory. I want to boldly and also with others ensure that the future of Norfolk is different than its past for the better. I think students deserve to go to school that they are proud of. I think parents deserve to send their children to schools that they are proud of. And that is our job to create the conditions to make that happen. And I want to be part of that movement. I want to be part of that vision. And I want to help and do everything I can to help lead that. Sure. Well, a leader, so sometimes when a leader is focused on themselves standing out, then it becomes about themselves, right? And so that's not my job, right? There's only one superintendent, but I will tell you, in fact, students were asking about an hour ago, were curious and making an assumption that, a superintendent makes all these tremendous and huge decisions. They make some decisions. A superintendent does make some decisions. They make a lot of suggestions, right? They sometimes lead with and through others. And so that is what a quality leader does, is not to focus on how they're going to stand out. The question is, how is Norfolk going to stand out? What are our schools going to do? How are we going to look differently a year, 2, 5 years from now? And that trajectory of continuous improvement is what I want to be part of. And if that is different than the past, great. But that is not about me standing out. That's about a movement here in this community. Well, I think number one, I want to be clear that there are lots of models, right, as it relates to supporting schools. So much will depend on our next strategic plan. So, and that was another calling card for me coming here, is knowing that that is an opportunity for us. That's an opportunity for our board to say, this is what our schools want to be known for. A really strategic plan is one that cleanly articulates, this is where we're going. And then the plan or the infrastructure and the system of support for schools is aligned to that. It needs to be clear, it needs to be elegant, and I think that that work, number one, needs to put our schools on the same page, knowing that we are part of a division. We are a school division. We are not a division of schools, and there's a difference. And it's my job as a superintendent to make recommendations as it relates to creating a system of support accordingly. Our schools that are most impacted, that are struggling more than others, number one, they should have the same North Star. Why would I change? Why would we change the North Star of expectations for students based upon issues of diversity or poverty? I think that that actually is immoral. Our job is to believe students, regardless of circumstance, can do incredible things, to create a clear North Star for our district, and then to create a very articulated plan related to the needs school by school. Those plans have demonstrated the most success. And you know, speaking from experience. Oh my goodness. So many. If you want me to give you an example, I will. So I don't have this student's permission to use their name, okay? I'm going to use the name Justin. That was not this student's name. Justin, there's a particular high school in Fulton County. This high school was on what was the south side of our county. This student, similar to the experience you described with another student, had some significant needs, was a decent, someone would say decent student. Did fine. That student, because of the principal at this school, we had these councils that we created school by school, and we asked for students to also sit on those councils. Justin was selected not because of Justin's grades, but because the principal saw potential in this particular student, albeit an average student. By the time, even just 2 years of knowing this student, I knew him even though I was a superintendent because he was at all of these meetings. In fact, he voluntarily started showing up to school board meetings on both sides of the district. If you know Fulton County, we would have to rotate because it's a very large place. He would find a way to make up to the north end of the county and show up to school board meetings. Justin ended up going to Georgetown. He did not make it there because of his grades. He had impressive test scores. Most importantly, he had letters that were written about Justin and the improvement he had made over high school from his principals and his teachers. And there happened to be an advocate who had also attended Georgetown in his community. And I will tell you, Justin, to this day, is doing extremely well and will graduate from Georgetown soon, and he was an average student in high school. It's because he was taught in high school by people that he respected that potentially he would be a good leader one day, which is why he was brought into this leadership team. I'm going to say this too when we have our meetings here in the next coming hours. One of the most important elements of a student's success is whether students think they're going to be successful. It seems simplistic. I think it's our job as adults to help teach and constantly, daily send a message that we believe they can be successful. If they hear it over and over and over, again, from not just one adult, but multiple, it can influence the way they think about themselves, and that's really important for us to do as adults. And it's when I have seen those messages resonate with students, and students pick up on them, it has changed them and how they see themselves as it relates to being part of this academic world. Yeah, right. When I left Fulton County, we started what was called Leading. We called it Leading Ed. This is the name of the organization. It started with 25 superintendents, friends of mine that I begged to be part of this group. And the concept was that leading is very isolating work. It just is. And navigating that isolationism is tricky for leaders. What I wanted to do is create a community and an ecosystem where leaders who are not necessarily politically tied to each other could support one another in a very pragmatic way. So we had a variety of protocols, and I'm not going to walk you through those because we'd be here for too long. But the concept of it was iron sharpening iron, leaders helping leaders. That organization grew over time. Superintendents were our main client, but we also spread to supporting teams, say CFOs of school districts, et cetera, and creating community where they could reach out in a very efficient way and get help from people around the country. So while that grew, that was then acquired by Cognia, and we started a new leadership division that did that very thing. It was not tied to accreditation. I'm not an expert in accreditation. My division was helping leaders come up with pragmatic ways to navigate some of the gray and isolating issues they face. I will say, yes, I was. In fact, I think every student also needs hooks into their experience, whatever that may be. Not all students are driven naturally by Algebra 2 trig, right? Some need other things. Mine was my sport. I won't get into my challenges as a student, but it is the reason I went to college, was because to pursue my sport. I grew up in an athletic environment. My dad's an Olympic coach, and so that was our world, for sure. And I think that, you know, my type A and discipline from an early age was aligned to being an athlete and also being the son of a coach and the son of a teacher. My mom was a teacher. And so, yes, athletics played a very, very important part of my life. So my dad's an Olympic swim coach. I was a swimmer. I was a water polo player. So my scholarship was in water polo. And if you're thinking, what is that? If you're in California, you would know. It's more popular there, but it's a wonderful, wonderful sport. And I miss it dearly, and I am retired.
From California?
Yeah, I grew up in California, mostly. I mean, I moved a lot because of my dad, but mostly Southern California, LA and Orange County.
What about like the arts? You know what I mean? You know, obviously athletics is super important. Arts are another option for kids. Sometimes they do both, but you know, that's always a concern with public schools and any school is making sure that arts are funded and that there are opportunities there. How do you feel about that?
The same. It's a hook. You know, our learning in school isn't all academic. right? And nor should it be. And I think there are lots of really important ways that we influence and we support students based upon their passions. And clearly, the arts is one of them. So when I say hook, and I describe athletics for me, because that was for me. But whether it is drama, whether it is chorus, whether it is a particular club, students need to understand that there are many opportunities for them to be engaged, as well as inspired. I will be quite honest with you. One reason that I got a decent GPA was to be able to play. I wanted to continue in something I was passionate about. And by the way, I'm not alone in that. Many of our students feel the same way, and it's our job to provide ample opportunities for them to be engaged and be inspired. And then, by the way, if you think about the arts is a discipline that as students truly engage in. It teaches them not just about the arts, but it helps them be successful post-graduating, not just high school, but out college. Let's remind ourselves, our job as educators is not to help kids become good in school. Our job as educators is to help them navigate this very complex world when they leave school. And I believe opportunities such as the arts and a variety of other things we provide are part of that. I'm going to be moving. Yeah, I mean, so I've been here as much as I can. I leave tomorrow morning and packing, working with movers, and moving. And so that'll come very quickly, right? This is about a week and a half, right? So there'll be a lot of moving parts. I can't wait to be here and to be settled and to be able to purely focus on just this. And so I'm chomping that to bits. Sure. Yeah, so today we're meeting with our colleagues in this building, right? Kind of by floors in this very room. And my job there is, of course, I'll do a brief intro. I'll walk them through about 3 or 4 slides. Over our 45-minute sessions, I want to talk about 10, and then I want to sit down, circle up, and have some discourse. I'm curious about questions, about comments. I'm interested about learning from them, and hopefully vice versa. So we'll do that throughout the day. And then later I have also some meetings with board members. I've been meeting with them individually and in small groups. And truly, that's relationship-based. I need to understand, what makes them tick so I can adequately support them and vice versa. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.